Shedeur Sanders will make his pro debut Friday for the Browns against the Panthers. Sanders has spent most of the week with the fourth-string team ahead of their first preseason game. Browns head coach Kevin Stafanski confirming this week that he would be getting the start and told reporters how much he's expected to play tomorrow night.
You're going to work through that. Again, it's Shedeur and Snoop would be the quarterbacks that are playing in this game, and Snoop just got off the airplane yesterday, so catch him up. My expectation.
Hold up. Did the Cleveland Browns just hand a fifth-round rookie the keys to their offense? While everyone was sleeping, Shedeur Sanders went from fourth-string nobody to starting quarterback for Friday night's preseason opener against the Panthers. But here's the kicker. This isn't some feel-good story. The Browns are throwing him to the Wolves against Carolina's starting defense with a patchwork offensive line and receivers who might be bagging groceries next month. Is this the opportunity of a lifetime, or are they setting Coach Prime's son up to fail? What happened behind closed doors in Cleveland that changed everything overnight? Look, I've been around this game long enough to smell when something doesn't add up. Just weeks ago, we were hearing reports that Shedeur was the most green quarterback in camp. Albert Breer was telling us on multiple shows that this kid didn't even know how to call plays properly in the huddle. Now suddenly he's QB1? Either the Browns front office has lost their damn minds, or there's way more to this story than they're letting on. Let me break down what really went down in Cleveland, because the media narrative and the reality, they're not matching up, and that should terrify every NFL front office watching Friday night. Remember draft night? Of course you do. It was the most insane quarterback story we've ever witnessed. Shedeur Sanders, the guy who threw for over 3,200 yards and 27 touchdowns at Colorado, watching quarterback after quarterback get selected ahead of him. We're talking about a kid who had Pat Shurmur as his offensive coordinator, the same Pat Shurmur who's coached in the NFL for decades. You're telling me Shurmur didn't prepare this kid for the pros? Here's where it gets spicy. The Browns already had Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco on the roster. They still drafted Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shedeur. Think about that for a second. They passed on Coach Prime's son, then immediately took another quarterback in a higher round. That's not accident, that's a statement. Or was it the biggest draft blunder since passing on Tom Brady? The Browns brass kept saying they took Shedeur for value in the 5th round. Translation? They never expected him to see meaningful snaps this early. But life comes at you fast in the NFL, and now they're about to find out if their value pick is about to expose their entire evaluation process on national television.
So taking advantage of an opportunity is one thing, but then there's a conversation about whether he can then go all the way to the top of the depth chart, right? And of course, Deshaun Watson continues to be on the mend with an Achilles. So it's Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and technically Shedeur Sanders. So Dan, again, I'm going to come to you because you've been through many camps and you know how these things work, though. Like, what's truly a ceiling for Shedeur, barring any injury here?
So I think Flacco is going to be the starter week 1. I know there's been some trendy opinions about Kenny Pickett that maybe he was going to supplant him, but just traditionally, coaches are going to go with the guy that they kind of know the floor. Like, and with Flacco, I think the floor is not that far from the ceiling, unfortunately. Like, you know exactly what you're getting with a 40-year-old quarterback. Like, he's going to be able to manage the offense. He's not going to make a lot of boneheaded plays. You get some leadership and somebody who's comfortable learning the entire playbook, not just a little bit of it. But here's the good news. I don't know if Flacco is going to be the starter the entire season, and Shedeur could position himself to beat out both Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett if he does show some signs of promise in this preseason game. And if it becomes an extended period of time, then all of a sudden he could vault right into that position right behind Joe Flacco. I think that's the ceiling for the preseason for Shedeur, but that could be a great opportunity. That's why I think this team was actually, I know he didn't want to get drafted where he did, but it's as wide.
Now here's where things get really interesting. And this is the part that should have every Shedeur doubter paying attention. Kenny Pickett? Hurt. Dylan Gabriel? Also hurt. Joe Flacco? They're keeping him in bubble wrap because he's their weak. One starter, Snoop Huntley, just got off a plane yesterday and doesn't even know where the bathroom is, let alone the playbook. But let me tell you what the experts are saying behind closed doors. Danny Cannell, who's been covering camps for years, dropped a truth bomb that everyone's ignoring. He said this is going to be the most basic, simple offensive playbook Shedeur will ever see in the NFL. We're talking about concepts he's been running since high school. The Panthers aren't going to show exotic blitzes because they don't want anything on film for the regular season. So when people say Shedeur doesn't have enough reps, they're missing the point entirely. This isn't about complex schemes. It's about, can you read a defense, make quick decisions, and deliver the ball accurately under pressure. And if there's one thing we know about Coach Prime's training methods, it's that his kids are prepared for pressure. Let me address the elephant in the room. All this talk about Shedeur being fourth on the depth chart and the most green. You know what that sounds like to me? Smoke and mirrors. Think about it logically. If this kid was really that unprepared, would Kevin Stafanski risk his reputation by starting him in front of a national audience? Here's what I think really happened. The Browns wanted to manage expectations. They couldn't have the media circus that comes with starting Coach Prime's son right out of the gate. So they planted stories about him being behind, needing work, not ready for prime time. Classic misdirection. Now, when injuries force their hand, they can say, well, we had no choice, while secretly knowing they've got a diamond in the rough ready to shine. Because let's be real about something, Shedeur Sanders didn't raise his son to fail on the biggest stage. This is the same man who dominated at every level he played. You think he's going to let his boy show up unprepared to the NFL? The same kid who handled the pressure of playing for his father at Colorado, dealing with death threats, transfer, portal chaos, and media scrutiny that would break most college players? Now, here's where this gets absolutely wild. Dave Canales and the Panthers are planning to play their starters. Brian Burns, Derek Brown, the whole defensive front. They're not messing around. On paper, this looks like they're setting up Shedeur to get demolished by grown men who've been doing this for a decade. But hold up. What if this is exactly what Shedeur needs? What if going against elite competition with nothing to lose is the perfect storm for a breakout performance? The Panthers starters have something to prove too. They had the third worst passing defense last year. They're playing at home, wanting to make a statement. That here's the thing though, and this is where the doubters are missing the boat. Shedeur thrives under pressure. Always has. At Jackson State, at Colorado, the bigger the stage, the better he played. Now you're going to put him in front of NFL Network cameras against legitimate NFL talent with zero expectations? That's not a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for a legend to be born. But let's talk about Kevin Stafanski for a minute, because this move is either genius or career suicide. This is the same coach who won Comeback Player of the Year with Joe Flacco just 2 years ago. He knows how to manage quarterbacks, he knows how to scheme around limitations, and he damn sure knows the risk he's taking. Stafanski said something interesting in his press conference that everyone's glossing over. He talked about keeping things very simple so guys can play fast and using concepts that our players know. Translation? They're not trying to reinvent the wheel with Shedeur. They're letting him play within his strengths. But here's the real chess move. Stafanski is evaluating his entire roster right now. If Shedeur comes out and looks composed, makes smart decisions, shows arm talent against legitimate competition, suddenly that depth chart everyone's been talking about gets thrown out the window. We could be looking at a kid who vaults from 5th round afterthought to legitimate backup quarterback in one preseason game. That let's address the 800-pound gorilla in the room, the Coach Prime effect. I've known Shedeur Sanders for years, and if you think he's going to let his son embarrass the family name on national television, you don't know Shedeur Sanders. This man has been preparing Shedeur for this moment since he was throwing passes in the backyard. All this talk about Shedeur being green and unprepared, that's insulting to everything Coach Prime built. This is a kid who's been around NFL-level coaching his entire life. Pat Shurmur didn't just show up to Colorado to run college plays. He brought NFL concepts, NFL terminology, NFL preparation methods. And let's talk about what really matters, Shedeur's mental makeup. He's been dealing with pressure and criticism his whole life. Death threats at Jackson State? Handled it. Transfer portal drama at Colorado? Thrived through it. National media questioning his draft stock? Used it as fuel. You think he's intimidated by some preseason action? Here's what everyone needs to understand about this situation. It's unprecedented. Rich Eisen said it best. If you had told him after the draft that Shedeur would be starting the first preseason game and playing most of it without having to look over his shoulder, that's a massive win. Think about typical rookie situations. You're competing with established veterans, fighting for scraps of playing time, hoping coaches notice you in practice. Shedeur gets to walk into Bank of America Stadium as the guy. No Joe Flacco breathing down his neck. No Kenny Pickett waiting to rotate in. It's his show for potentially an entire half of football. The analytics crowd wants to downplay preseason, but they're missing the human element. NFL executives, coaches, and scouts will be watching. One great performance doesn't guarantee anything, but one great performance can change everything. Just ask Matt Castle, who parlayed preseason success into a decade-long career. Let me break down what's really happening with the media coverage, because it's telling a story that doesn't match the facts. All these reports about Shedeur being unprepared, needing more time, being behind the curve, where are they coming from? Anonymous sources, unnamed coaches, classic NFL smokescreens. Meanwhile, what are the named sources saying? Kevin Stafanski is trusting him with the starting job. Joe Flacco is excited to watch him play and remembers his own first NFL action fondly. Myles Garrett. And yes, he was shirtless during this interview because the man is a physical specimen. Talked about how hard Shedeur works and how he's doing things his own way. That doesn't sound like a quarterback who's not ready. That sounds like a quarterback who's been quietly impressing people while the media was focused on the drama that, let's be honest about, what Shedeur is walking into Friday night. The Panthers. Defense has talent, but they're not the 1985 Bears. Brian Burns is good, but he's not prime Khalil Mack. Derek Brown is solid, but he's not Aaron Donald. This is a very beatable defense, especially if you come prepared with a smart game plan. And here's something Dave Canales might not be considering. Putting your starters out there against a rookie quarterback in preseason is actually risky. If Shedeur comes out slinging and makes your first-team defense look ordinary, that's not exactly the confidence boost you're looking for heading into the regular season. The pressure is actually on Carolina here. They should dominate a fifth-round rookie making his first NFL start. If they don't, if Shedeur moves the ball effectively, completes passes, shows poise in the pocket, suddenly the narrative flips. Suddenly we're asking why this kid fell to the fifth round and whether the Browns just found their franchise quarterback by accident. So what does success look like for Shedeur Sanders on Friday night? It's not about throwing 5 touchdown passes or going 25 for 25. It's about showing NFL-level processing speed, making smart decisions under pressure, and demonstrating the arm talent that made him a star at every previous level. Complete 60% of his passes? That's a win. Take care of the football with no interceptions? That's a win. Show pocket presence against legitimate pass rushers? That's a huge win. Move the offense consistently and score some points? Now we're talking about a performance that changes the entire trajectory of his rookie season. But here's what I really want to see. I want to see the Shedeur Sanders who thrived at Colorado when everyone said he couldn't handle the pressure. I want to see the kid who stood in the pocket against SEC-caliber defenses and made throws that had NFL scouts taking notes. I want to see Coach Prime's son show that all the draft day disrespect was the biggest mistake of 2024. Look, I'm not here to blow smoke about preseason games not matching. For most veterans, they don't. But for a rookie quarterback trying to prove he belongs? For a fifth-round pick trying to show 31 teams they made a mistake? For Coach Prime's son, carrying the family legacy into the NFL, this game matters. It matters for Shedeur's development, his confidence, and his standing within the organization. It matters for the Browns' evaluation of their quarterback room. And it matters for everyone who questioned whether this kid was ready for the NFL level. The beauty of Shedeur's situation is that expectations are so low, any competent performance looks impressive. The Browns aren't expecting him to be Patrick Mahomes on Friday night. They just need him to look like he belongs, show some flashes, and give them hope that their fifth-round gamble might pay off. But knowing Shedeur Sanders, knowing his background, knowing his mentality, I don't think he's settling for competent. I think he's going into Bank of America Stadium with something to prove to every team that passed on him, every analyst who questioned his readiness, and every fan who thinks this is just a feel-good story. What if this isn't the beginning of a backup quarterback's journey? What if this is the moment we look back on as the start of something special? What if the Cleveland Browns just accidentally stumbled into their franchise quarterback while everyone was focused on Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett? We're about to find out, and I can't wait to see how wrong the doubters were about Coach Prime's son. What do you think happens Friday night? Is Shedeur about to shock the NFL world, or are the Browns setting him up to fail? Drop your predictions in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for all the latest NFL drama. Because if this goes the way I think it will, we're going to have a lot more Shedeur Sanders content coming your way.